Good afternoon, good evening, fellow viewers, and welcome to this special edition of the Grand Debate on Big Debate Comma. I am your host, Elizabeth, and my co-host for today's session is going to be Terence Agbo. Joining us today on the Big Debate are two brilliant minds that are no strangers to this platform in the presence of Harry Fawn, popularly known as Treize Quartoze, and our resident football analyst, Eno Ayukaba, known as Tru3Lion himself. Later on during the course of this debate, I'm going to give them 1 or 2 minutes to talk about themselves. Today on the Big Debate, we're going to focus on football in Africa. And to be more specific, we're going to be discussing the relevance of a strong local league to the national team. Following the AFCON 2021, we've received an array of complaints from Africans and football fans around the world regarding the over-reliance of African teams on foreign talent. Many believe that this over-reliance and over-dependence is one of the barriers that are impeding the development of football in Africa. So today's debate is going to be focused on that, and the two brilliant minds that we have on here today are going to share their different perspectives on how to go about addressing this very important issue on the continent. So I'm going to go ahead and pull in the two contestants for today in the presence of Tru3Lion and Treize Quartoze to please come in and give our viewers tell them 1 or 2 things about you. Harry, you can go first.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me, Debate Cameroon. It's always a pleasure to be on this platform and exchange ideas with some of the brilliant minds across our beautiful African continent, and especially from the hunger soccer country nation of Cameroon. So I'm especially sharing a platform with um, the analyst. He fancies himself that. Um, it's a good thing to be on the same platform with Tru3Lion. We've gone at this for over 10 years. We've never really agreed on much when it comes to football, and that's why we're on the platform today, because we see football differently. I guess it's a generational thing. So it's an honor overall to just be on the platform with you, Elizabeth, moderating the debate, and like I said, being part of this debate with Enna, aka Tru3Lion.
Thank you very much, Harry. Tru3Lion, Eno, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mrs. Akaya. Thank you, Treize Quartoze. It's a pleasure, and thanks for all those actually that tune in to view this debate. I'm a passionate fan, analyst, whatever you call it. But for me, it's all about the love of football, and it's all about improving, football through local leagues, and that will actually transcend through the national team, and that's what we're talking about today. Thanks for having me, guys.
Great, great, great. And just joining us is my co-host Terence. Terence, you want to say hi to the viewers before we take off?
Oh, of course, sure. Hi, everyone, and welcome once more to the Big Debate. It's a pleasure to have our two fantastic gentlemen. Tru3Lion, he's a resident analyst. He's been here the month of January. He spent his entire month here with us at the Big Debate. And you guys know Harry Fawn, Treize Quartoze. He's hosted this show several times. He's a member of the Big Debate team, and he and Tru3Lion have been going on against each other, and I think you guys are going to witness a very, very bright and interesting show today, and we are going to learn a lot from you guys. And so, Madam Akaya, you go ahead and give the guys the floor.
Thank you, Terence. Before we start, please, viewers, share, invite a friend, tag a friend, and leave as many comments or as many questions as you would want addressed in the comment section. And hopefully we'll get to touch on each and every one of those questions. So let's go ahead and start. And I am unfortunately going to pick on Tru3Lion first, who apparently is our football expert on the platform. And no offense to Treize.
And Madam Akaya, just before you go, please, we do suggest and recommend you guys to respect each other when one another is speaking. Please respect yourself, stay silent, and we will indicate how much time you do have to make your point. All of you will have enough time to discuss, so don't worry. There are a lot of people out there who are very, very interested in the development of African football. So
Right.
over to you guys.
Perfect. So, Tru3Lion, it is my understanding that you watched most of the AFCON games. So we're going to start at the AFCON level because we're talking about African football here, right? So, following your post on Facebook and your comments across different posts on Facebook during the AFCON session, and even some of the analysis that you did on our platform pre and posts and during the competition, I assume that you watched most of the games. So I would just want to ask you from a broad perspective, what is your overall assessment of the games, and do you think that there is a glimmer of hope for Africa moving forward as far as football is concerned?
Yeah, thank you for that. My overall assessment is that African Nations Cup was good, actually good for the smaller teams because we saw a lot of smaller teams actually perform well. However, I did not see enough from the bigger team. So it's as if the smaller team actually progressed, but the bigger teams did not impress me that much. So I think Africa has to go back to its roots in order to galvanize football.
Okay, that's a good point because we did see what happened to Cameroon, even though they were able to fight back and regain their ground. Treize, what do you think about that? I don't know if you watched most of the game.
Yeah, I did. I did. It was one of the most beautiful African football tournament in my lifetime that I've watched a lot because I mean I've been around too for a fair bit. So, but the overall organization of the African Nations Cup was beautiful. The game itself, the level of football in Africa has risen, and of course. Tru3Lion says he didn't see the big teams. Maybe the big teams didn't perform because the smaller teams have almost caught up with the big teams, right? So, of course, you cannot expect, unless you expect that the bigger teams were just going to overrun the smaller teams. But if you're giving credit to the smaller teams, that means that they have come of age, and it's not just going to be a pushover as it used to be in other tournaments. So this is where we want African football to be. This is the level that we're expecting that from now henceforth when we go to Ivory Coast in under 18 months, we want to see maintain and blow off the roof because that's the plan that FIFA has for Africa. That's the plan that CAF has for Africa, and that's the vision I see African football going forward. It was a beautiful tournament overall from start to finish.
Yeah. I think we unanimously agree that that is what that the teams portrayed, and that is basically what we want to see because the World Cup is coming up, right? And we don't want to rely on the usuals: Cameroon, Egypt, Ghana, Nigeria. We want to see new names. We want to see surprises. We want to see teams advance. So, in that regard, based on the overall performance from the big guys and the smaller guys, which of the teams do you think, and I know there are qualifiers that are coming up, World Cup qualifiers. So which of the teams do you think would make it? And if at all they make it, how far do you think they can progress beyond the quarterfinals level? Because I think that's the furthest any African team has gone at the world stage. So Tru3Lion, you go first. Yes.
I think Africa is actually lacking when it comes to World Cup because if you see the previous last two World Cups, the one that took place in Russia, no African team actually progressed from the eliminatory rounds, the first rounds, and the previous one only two. I think Nigeria and Ghana actually went through. So what Africa is actually missing is that like for instance, we just saw the African Nations Cup that just ended. We have to remember that there was COVID. So many of those big teams that have players that play a lot in the bigger leagues or in Europe did not have time to prepare, as opposed to the smaller teams that have many players that are local. So that's why you have that concept that that this Nations Cup was actually better because those smaller teams, most of their players are homegrown, and then they had more chemistry than the bigger teams.
Yeah.
So moving forward, I don't really see because Africa it seems as if everyone is like, I have this terminology that I use. They know the fit file for market day. Most of them are just waiting,
Yeah.
for the bigger European countries or the bigger leagues to produce players, and they go fetch players from there. No, you have to go back to grassroots football in order to galvanize your football, in order
Yeah.
to make your football better, and in order to promote a better culture. So for this upcoming World Cup, I don't see Africa, maybe a team or two will actually progress to the next round, but I don't see Africa actually going too far. It's too early to say, but that's the way I look at it.
Okay. And Treize, what do you think about Tru3Lion's assessment or prognosis?
Of course, I disagree. I disagree like a baseball bat running home run out a baseball cut. So, of course, I do disagree with him. But um, I saw a balanced Senegalese team from attack, midfield, defensive, and all the way to the goalkeeper. They have the best goalkeeper in the world. It would be disingenuous to say Africa is not going to go far if they have the best goalkeeper in the world, if they have one of the best defenders in Koulibaly in their ranks, if they have the midfield that they have, and they have Mane and other players that they're still going to show up, some other players that are going to show up when it's time to go for the World Cup, right? All I need Senegal to do right now is get over Egypt in their qualifier. My expectation for Senegal is to go past the quarterfinals that they have already been to, right? Because of the kind of the caliber of players that they have. If Senegal does not go past that level, it would be a disappointment for me because they have everything that they need at this point to even win out the tournament. And a lot of people think I'm crazy, but that's where I'm at right now. I have compared. I was watching a bunch of other analysts, and they were already rating Argentina, and they were already rating Brazil and Germany and France. And then we're here pandering on Africa. We're here, they're feeding foul on market day. What is that, right? Senegal is ready. Nobody is out here that's looking at the Senegalese team and saying that they have weaknesses on their right back. They have weaknesses here. Their coach may not be the flamboyant coach, or he just won an African Nations Cup. So he has that confidence with him going into this World Cup, right? And they have the backing of all of Africa. They're the African champion. So I'm hoping that the first things is to get over Egypt. Egypt is not no small team either, but I think it should be fairly comfortable for Senegal to get over Egypt. And then they should make their sole objective getting past the quarterfinals, right? And I am putting my money on Senegal right now.
Wow. Okay, before we move on to the next question, and I'm going to give Terence the opportunity to ask. I see while you were speaking, Tru3Lion, he was just cracking up. And I bet you he has something to counteract what you just said.
I'm sure he does.
Yes, and just before he does that, Tru3Lion, before I know you are going to comment, we had to give you the chance to respond, but also you mentioned something interesting that the last World Cup, and that is very true, that no African team progressed, but we also have to take it into consideration that Senegal and Colombia finished with the same number of points, same number of goals. The only reason that Colombia progressed is because of fair play. So it's not it wasn't all about football. At that point, it was outside of the pitch.
Yeah.
But Dr. T, it's within the rules of the game. Fair play is within the rules of the game. So the question was like, did any African team progress? No, none of them progressed. And sometimes when we come on here and some people are talking about fantasy football, he's talking as if Senegal already qualified for the World Cup. Is that not fantasy football? He's talking about, this guy knows nothing about football. Look, he comes over here and he's talking about some fantasy as if Senegal already is in the World Cup. How can you be making World Cup predictions for a team that has not even qualified for the World Cup, that win it all? So Senegal, let me tell you something, Dr. T. Do you remember the Senegal team of 1998? Go watch that team. That team was far, although they did not win World Cup. Look at, I don't look at football as just wins. Okay, winning is very important, but when you look at the team that beat France, in that World Cup, that team was way better. We have seen better teams. Ghana has produced better teams. Cameroon has produced better teams than the Senegal team. Yet the Senegal team has not yet been qualified for World Cup, and someone is telling me that they have the best goalkeeper, they have the best midfielder. You don't transfer. Well, club football doesn't translate directly into national team football. That's something you should learn, Treize Quartoze.
Is he done?
Yeah, and Treize, would you want to?
I'm gonna have a rebuttal. I'm gonna need a rebuttal.
Yeah, so we give you 30 seconds to respond.
I did not. If he has a tendency not to be patient to understand, right? And I'm happy we're on a debate platform. I know that about him because we've been doing this for such a long time. I did not say Senegal has already qualified. I said they have to get over Egypt. If he understood that part, he will not make the points he just made because they still have a huddle to get over Egypt. And I said Egypt is no pushover team, but with the caliber of players that Senegal has, I expect Senegal to get over Egypt. And once they get over Egypt, I expect to see them run through. Expectations have never meant that they're going to be materialistic. We had a lot of expectations in 2002 in Korea, Japan, and Cameroon went and did its own thing. So expectations do not mean that they're going to translate into reality. So, I hope it's clear now.
Yeah, that answers my question because we wanted to know which teams could progress and how far these teams could go.
Yeah, so thank you, Treize, for that very, very precise response. So we'll now move to the next question. And like the main subject of this discussion is about local football. And so let's talk about local leagues in Africa. So I'm going to start with you, Treize, because you and Tru3Lion actually had a go at each other. So the question is very simple. There is an overall dependence on international or foreign-based African players playing their tournaments, playing their trade in Europe, in the Americas, and even in Asia for the national team. So there are people with different schools of thought about this. Should this practice be abolished? Should we depend on local football? Treize.
Should we depend on local football?
Yes. Should this practice be abolished? The overly dependence on players playing only international football and no local players.
If your country is not producing the caliber of players that need to play at the international level, then you would have to source your players from other avenues. It's a little bit of both. The countries that produce players that can play for their national teams, i.e. Egypt, Tunisia, they have the leagues that produces players that can play in their national teams at an international level. Cameroon is not on that level. Nigeria is not on that level. Ghana is not on that level. Their leagues are not professional leagues in the sense that they are not at international standards to produce players that can compete internationally, right? And because all of us on this platform, have migrated to foreign countries, we have gotten married, we have had kids. Those kids are equally part because we tell those kids that they came from our respective countries. And all of a sudden, we want to alienate these kids when it comes to the talent pool to draw back to those countries. That is the height of ludicrous because you are telling me, in essence, this is what you're saying, and let's step out of football for a quick second, that we should not go back to invest in Cameroon. I should not go back and invest. Only Cameroonians should invest in Cameroon.
No, that is not the question. No, that is not the question.
I'm giving you a reference.
No, I want to correct the question so that you answer the question I asked, because you are probably talking about something else we'll be discussing subsequently. The question is the dependence on players playing only international football, not foreign-born local Cameroonians. That's not a question.
And I'm broadening the scope so that people understand, because when you want to narrow it down to football, it would look like we don't have Cameroonians that exist out of that scope. So it's a bigger question that you're asking, right? But it's focused in football. We are not dependent only, right now we are, because that's the quality of players that are international football has its high stakes. Cameroon does not produce the quality of players that can keep up to pace or compete at that level. The CAF organized CAF for the local players.
Yes.
The Cameroon did not even get out of their group stage.
That's correct.
Right? So that is the quality of players that are local. Right?
But other teams, no, the point is you have to recall that this is African football we are talking about, not only Cameroon. Other teams did progress. Is that correct?
Their leagues are much better than the Cameroonian league, right? And we're going to develop this because I don't want to touch this so Enoch gets a little borrowing my ideas, right? So when I want to nail him out, I don't want to. So my point is this: Cameroon does not produce the talent quality locally at their professional league level to integrate the national team. And that's fine. It's not a problem because we make enough babies who play internationally that we can call back at home and come reinforce. It should not be a problem either ways. A Cameroonian is a Cameroonian. It does not matter if you plow your trade at the MLS level. If you are good and you need to come home and plow your trade, that is what we should reinforce. At a point in time when we say we are going to elevate the professional league in Cameroon, and when we're going to touch on that, we're going to develop that. I'm only focused on the question that you asked. At that point in time, and when we talk about those specifications on how to create a professional league that will build the kind of players that would integrate the national team, then we can have that conversation. At this point, we don't have a league, we don't have quality, so the only option we have is international.
And Tru3Lion, the next question is going to go for you, but maybe I give you 1 minute to respond to Treize. You are muted.
Yes, could you just ask the question once more?
The basic question is you have been a huge preacher of that without players playing abroad, we would not have any national team, because in most of the African teams that take part in international competitions, except for a few, we all depend on players who play professional football abroad. So the question was, should this practice be abolished? If so, or if not, why and why not?
Oh, no one is asking for that practice to be abolished. When I say or when I write, sometimes, I'm there to stimulate minds. And I wish I actually stimulate the mind of Treize Quartoze, because what I say, they know the fix, they know the feet far from market day. If you are literalist, or if you have grandparents, when they tell you that, it means you don't wait for the market day in order to start feeding your fowl. Okay, like now we have a game in 3 weeks. Where is Rigoberto? He's over there chasing Matip. They're waiting for the last moment to start doing things for these kids that were actually raised out of the country. You don't run a business like that. That's what I'm talking about. You have to plan for success, and that's how football is being run. You don't wait for the D-Day in order to. So what I'm saying is that Africans, or we, have to start planning for the future. And how do we plan for the future? By going through, you remember Osuks? That was grassroots football.
Yeah. Tru3Lion, I get that point. I think that's something that we'll discuss when we'll start talking about how then can this game be developed. But I just wanted to clarify, because based on Treize's point, and also wanted to hear what you think, whether this practice should be abandoned, abolished. But my understanding is that for both of you, the answer is a vehement no.
No, of course, that's a FIFA. FIFA has accommodations for, because you remember there were some times where young kids would play for, let's say, for France on that, then they would be called up for the national team. Then they will end up not playing international football anymore. So FIFA actually brought this rule in order to resolve such problems. So no one is asking for a ban.
Yeah, that's something that we'll probably talk a little bit more about some of those foreign-born international. So that's actually
it sounds to me that he has shifted goalposts, but nobody's counting. That's okay.
No, that's why I said we will be talking about that subject. I'm clarifying that now because we don't want to talk about it now. But he made his point here. I will not hold Tru3Lion on what he posted on Facebook several months ago. I will hold Tru3Lion accountable on what he says now.
Dr. T.
Okay.
Dr. T.
I just want to make
Dr.
sure
T.
because
Dr. T.
it looks like he's
Dr. T.
shifting again the goalpost.
Treize, you can hold him accountable on that. I will not do that. My job is the moderator.
Dr. T, I just gave an explanation. Let us act as if I posted something different.
So yeah,
okay, guys. Okay, let's go to the next question.
Let's get back. So I have a follow-up question that because when we posted the flyer, we started receiving questions from viewers, especially folks that we're not going to be watching, and they expect Tru3Lion and Treize to answer some of these questions. So while we're on the topic of local, leagues, I'm going to ask Tru3Lion a follow-up question that one of your fans, I'm not going to disclose who the person is, sent to me. And they're asking you that if you're saying that a good local league translates to a great national team, right? That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So he's saying that in 1998 and in 2018, France won the World Cup, right? Yes. And he's asking you how many of those players at the national team in France at the time played in Ligue 1 in France.
Okay, well,
and Tru3Lion, he even went on to say furthermore that you are a big fan of the Premier League. So England has a very, very strong league. The last time England showed up in a competition was in 1966 in the finals. Of course, they lost the finals recently, but if you don't win, like you always say, if there is no trophy, we don't count you.
Don't go too far. First of all, don't go too far. First of all, I ask you, how many teams without the league have ever won the World Cup? None. Without the good league have ever won the World Cup? None. Okay, I hope I just answered your question there. Then secondly, all those French players and even those now playing in Cameroon and many different African countries, where did they come up from? Clairefontaine. Okay, that's grassroots football in France. So they can go maybe later on and play in different big clubs and all that, but where is their foundation from? So we cannot start jumping all around and acting as if France has a system. Look at the teams that have won World Cup recently. Even Brazil is having that problem because most of their players are now going to Europe in order to integrate like football schools. So they are having that problem. Although before Brazil was the team that dominated, but now their culture is going away, it's going down the drain because every player, every good talent actually goes now to Europe. And now everybody's playing European football. That's why Europe is actually dominating football nowadays. So that's why we need to.
So, but while you're on France and Clairefontaine, how many Clairefontaine graduates
players won it? Yeah,
French.
I know 1998 you had the like of Anelka and Henry, but in 2018, this particular question was asked by one of your fanatics.
The viewers,
he's more than a fan; he's a fanatic.
But all those guys are products from French football. French football that is even in EPL. French football is the one that fuels the EPL.
Okay. So Tru3Lion, we'll move on. So you are a huge proponent of a strong local league. So this is the question that was posted to you is something that was sent by a viewer. Now this is part of the discussion you and Treize are having. So you are a huge proponent of strong local football, or as you call it, grassroots football in Africa. What makes you think that is a solution?
What's the solution to? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you think that a strong local league is the potential solution to a good national team? What makes you think that is the solution?
Yes, for me, that's a solution because most teams that have actually won the World Cup, or all teams that have won the World Cup, have actually a very good functional league. And most recently, if you take examples like Germany, Spain, that actually planned their success, you can see that they had the kids grow up together in their leagues, and they had like a culture of belt and a type of football that everybody was actually, exposed to. So when I say leagues or grassroots football makes the national team better, it's just because it's cultured in such a way that the kids that come out from such programs know each other. take example like a Brasserie, called the Brasserie, where Jeremy Jita, Womelin, and all them came. That's also grassroots football. And you saw that product because when you make your local league competitive, even the kids that are coming from outside, let's say from these French or European football schools, they have good competition. So you have a bigger pool to pull players from. You see what I'm saying? So it's not as if I'm putting the local kids against international. So what I'm saying is that we also have kids back home that should not be neglected. You know, we also have great talents back home that should not be neglected. Our best player ever, Samuel Eto'o. Where did he come from? You know,
from ESUCB.
Exactly. But nowadays, guess what they are doing? Because the best African talents are playing with France or Germany, and we are just getting the chance.
So you think for all African teams, if there is no local football, they wouldn't do well. But I am of the opinion, and like I will let Treize respond. We also notice that Ghana, when Ghana progressed to the quarterfinals of the African Nations Cup, none of the players, or if any, maybe one or two were local, who were not starting.
Was that for Eno or for me?
No, for Eno, Eno should answer the question. Then you will respond to
Okay, I thought you were talking to Treize. Could you please just repeat the quick question once more?
So while you think that the success of the national team solely depends on a strong local league, we have seen progress. Teams in Africa progress significantly in the World Cup, for example, because that's the mother of all tournaments. An example is Ghana in 2010, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and even the year before, who actually did well, and none of the players were local.
None of the players were local. I mean, that happens once in a while, and that's why Africa has not been consistent in World Cups. Even teams like, you guys forget, even Asian teams now like South Korea and all that, they went to the semi-final. Was it semi-final or quarterfinals? You know, I mean, those Asian teams, because they have functional leagues, are even doing now better than the African teams. You see what I'm saying? So let's not be only looking at us Africans. Let's compare how we actually compete with others. You know, because that's also very important. Because consistency doesn't actually look at the last two World Cups that I just called you. No African team progressed to the next round.
I have something to add. Before I do that, let's give Treize an opportunity.
Yes, Treize. Yeah, Treize, you've been silent, and I've seen you be scratching your back as if he's ignoring you.
In under 31 minutes, Eno has said the league does not transfer to the national team, right? The performance in the professional league does not transfer to playing in the national in the local league does not translate to the national team. And in another segment, he wants a good league that will equally not translate to the national team. When I say Eno shifts the goalpost, this is exactly what I mean, right? One time it does not translate, and when it favors him, it translates. Okay. In the recent African Nations Cup, the country with the best league, South Africa, did not even qualify for the African Nations Cup. In a tournament that Eno thinks it was so-so. The country with the best league, there are people in South Africa that make over $1 million, upwards to $13 million a year in contracts. The TV rights in South Africa runs in the billions of rands. That is a financially lucrative league. They did not qualify for the African Nations Cup that Eno thinks was so-so. Let's just be clear about a few things. Countries like Mauritania, the Gambia, countries that we didn't even know had football teams, right? The Gambia that played, is it a quarterfinal game? In March, they're playing a qualifier for the next Nations Cup because they are ranked so low that even though they played the quarterfinals, they have to go this March and play a qualifier to even get into the draws to play the African Nations Cup in
Ivory Coast.
In Ivory Coast. So having a local league is good. I want Cameroon to have a local league, and I'm going to state the reasons when I'm given the opportunities to state the reasons.
I think you should go right ahead. I think you should go right ahead.
I should go right ahead. Okay, let me break it down here.
Yes.
Football has 3 components, and you must fulfill these 3 components, whether you like it or you don't like it. The investors must get their return on investment. That's the first thing. The players must get a sustainable income that pays for them to survive on that income, because it's a job that they're doing to feed their family, have health care, and all of that stuff. And it must provide entertainment, right? So when a league provides those components, it has satisfied anything. It has nothing to do with the national team. And that's why South Africa is providing those components, but they don't produce the quality that is good enough for them to even compete on Africa and African's continent. But they provide all of those 3. Investors are getting their money back when they invest their hundreds of millions in the South African league. They get their returns on investment. The players that play in South Africa are getting a good wage, a livable wage. They can take care of their families. They can drive nice cars. They can live a comfortable life, right? And the local fans are enjoying beautiful, entertaining South African football because they're importing other players to come play. So the level is elevated. Cannot have a professional league because we cannot meet these 3 criteria. We don't have investors. We don't pay every year in Cameroon. The league has not started because they don't have the money to pay the players. In Cameroon, players get paid 26,000 francs. The FECAFOOT just upgraded it recently to 100,000 francs, right? I don't know with how expensive Cameroon is if that is a livable wage for a football player. But let's say it's good enough, because civil servants make about that much. But it has to also provide entertainment for the fans to pay their money to go watch and get some amount of satisfaction. Those 3 criteria in my lifetime will not be met in Cameroon, right? I don't see that being achievable in my lifetime. And I have another 40 years to live, I hope, knock on wood, right? So, which means that Cameroon is not going to have a professional league of a standard that is even going to be comparable to the likes of the Egyptian league, South African league. So we are going to have to say, let's look at these guys coming from Europe. And yes, we need grassroots football in the sense that we need to go back to primary school football. We need to go back to Osuks. We need to go back to Cup Top.
Yeah.
Give me.
I think we'll come to press. Sorry for
because Eno was talking about grassroots football, right? But yes. I want to draw where we separate, because grassroots football, he talked about Clairefontaine and all of those stuff. We need to have the basis in grassroots, but it does not mean that with the league, without the league, you cannot circumvent, right? When the kids now have the basis, they can then go to the South Africas of the world. They can then go to the Egypts of the world. They can then go to France. We're having a new outlet where guys are coming to MLS now. We have Tolu, right, who is playing in Seattle. That's a guy we didn't know, right? But he has broken out. He put Salah in his pocket. Everybody was ecstatic, right? Has anybody ever asked what was his parcours pour arriver où il est là maintenant, right? So we need to establish grassroots football at the very basic level, where we have primary school, secondary school, up to the university level. And I think that's where it stops, right? At that point, we can now say, these guys, because there's not going to be a professional league to integrate these guys with the talent that has come from that grassroots, because the investment is not going to be there.
Why do you think you can be a professional league? I would have wanted Tru3Lion to respond first before I ask this question, but like, it's yeah, I think this is a very important question. Why do you think we can get such a professional league? It doesn't necessarily mean, I mean, my understanding is that it doesn't necessarily mean we have to be paying people the amount of rands they pay in South Africa by Cameroon standards, or compared to other. I mean, like you mentioned, they haven't started a league. So why has it not started?
The league didn't start because it failed to start. They didn't start now because the date has not been met. That was one of Eto's first failures, right? He gave a deadline that the league was going to start, and prior to that, the league had not even started. So Eto gave assurances and guarantees, and that failed. So as a president, that was one of his failures that came in his presidential term, that the league didn't start. But your question, I'll give you an example.
I think that's fair.
No. Let me say something real quick. One question, please permit me. PWG Bamenda, one of the most structured teams as it stands in the 21st century, right? The team has it's one of the most structured and organized teams as it stands on 2022, has made an investment. Their budget for this year is 131 million francs CFA into the domestic league. And I want to ask you, at the end of that football year, is PWG Bamenda going to show in their books that they made that $131 million back?
Okay, so if you're asking me that question, I can answer you the question, but as a moderator, I wouldn't be answering questions that you should.
No, you asked me a question, so I felt like we were having a conversation, but my point is why...
So this is what I think. And if I'm answering this question, I'm going to be telling you answers to this conversation, because...
Okay, then don't give answers.
No, it will all depend on how the football is developed. If a team cannot be having a budget of say $200 hypothetically, or 2,000 francs, when at the end of the day, if it is well organized, if you are going to take part in a competition, you should be able to be to make that money. It doesn't necessarily have to come from that competition. It could come from different avenues, commercialization of the league. But now you are making me to tell you what you are supposed to be telling your audience. So
I want to tell them. I gave that analysis. It was a rhetorical question, right? I gave it that. The possibility of them getting that 131 million back at the end of the year, because they have to reinvest that money in the next following year. That's the investment part, return on investment I was talking about. So when they invest 131 million this year, in 2023, and the balance of their books, they should be able to have that money to then reinvest. It's continuous investment. Yeah. But what is going to happen in 3 years? They would have had deficits upon deficits upon deficits. Hopefully, it doesn't happen for PWG. But then they're going to run out of money, and then the club is going to be defunct.
Treize, I think we'll move I will let Tru3Lion respond to your previous comment, because this subject that you have touched is a very, very interesting one. And because that is going to be a separate issue on itself on how football should be run, because how football should be run will tell you where income should be coming from and where income should be going to. It shouldn't be, a club shouldn't be running itself. It's a national thing. So, but
they have three sponsors. They have the credit union, they have the coffee cooperative, and I think they have one other sponsors. So assumably, and they have a lot of supporters from outside the countries that buy equipment and stuff. So assuming this money is coming from investors, so that's how money comes into a club. So PWD is doing all the right things. My problem is the money is coming into the club, but the fans now need to go. The fans locally need to also put in some money, TV rights. They need to have other avenues that is not just money from the fans.
Okay,
yeah,
so
exactly.
that's the
business of football.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I said we'll discuss this, because that is how football should be run. It's not PWD, but it is a national. That's why we are talking about local football. And I want you guys to talk on this later, because I will be asking you guys to propose solutions on how the local football can be improved. So we'll be talking about that subsequently. That's why I didn't want to dwell on this now, but I will let Tru3Lion comment.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. T, you see,
yes,
when you have people that have never even run a Pee Wee league, they come here and they're throwing words left and right. Eto, what is Eto? What did Eto make in his statement? Because I'll talk about the professionals. I ain't gonna even come here and try to paint a color as if I know how to run a league, because you have professionals that have been hired or have been voted to actually do that. Eto'o has spoken on that, and one of his statements is that les Africains doivent construire leur football. That's one of the major statements. Motsepe, the owner of Melody Sundowns, and Treize Quartoze just made a statement here that South Africa is the best league in Africa. He doesn't even know. They are number 6. I can show you. You can go look. They are number 6. They are not the best. So he comes here and just.
Did you just Google that?
No, I had this. I had this.
He just Googled. He just Googled it, and then he comes at me. And he's like the number 6.
Of course.
Okay, he did his research, so let's give him a break.
Wait. What are the first 5? You know,
hold on. I did not interrupt you. I did not interrupt you.
I did not interrupt you.
You know, so
yes,
the way Motsepe and Infantino are actually structuring African football right now is they are going back to the grassroots, okay? And they are actually giving like advantages to people who have good local leagues, and that's why they're coming up with a super league that actually failed in Europe, you know. So they want to galvanize grassroots football that will actually go up to the leagues. So that's why it's always good, because this guy is coming to talk here. He doesn't know that football, yes, is a business, it's an entertainment, and you have to have that culture from the fans. Look at what happened during the AFCON, Olembe, that tragedy. Yes, tragedy happens everywhere, but it could be avoided. It's because the fans don't have that culture of going to the field frequently. When I was growing up, I used to go to the field frequently. I used to watch in Young Douala every time. You know, he doesn't have that culture. He started watching football when he came to America. And the other day when I was talking to him, he was telling me that his kids are now Tottenham fans. That's somebody he's talking about African football, but he's telling his kids that they have to follow Tottenham because that's the team he follows. So the English have built their league, and the league is attractive, and everyone is looking at the English. No one wants to build African football, and he's telling me that Africa can deal with sending kids to Europe. Do you know how many kids have ended up in football slavery? Do you know how many kids fail? No, you don't know. All you know is the beautiful EPL that you watch day in, day out. But you don't know how many kids actually go into football slavery and how many kids actually go. So those are the things that we need to actually contain through building local football and doing grassroots football, because we need to get our football back, and we need to get our kids that are back home. Because I talked to one, I have a friend who is still back in Douala and all that. What's his name? I just forgot, but I was talking to him, and he says what actually makes them go watch now FC Bonaberi is because they have kids that dreaming, and that when they see Eto'o, they are happy that Eto'o will rebuild Cameroon football, and they can start going back to the stadiums instead of people ending up in bars, you know. So it's about the community. You have to take care of your community, you know. It's about entertainment.
So I want us to, and this is going to lead us.
Do I not have a 30-second to
okay? You
all
have
those
30
onslaughts
seconds
of attacks and stuff? Yes.
30 seconds, and I will move on to the next section.
I think Cameroonians in Tottenham make me be fans of Tottenham. I did not just go there.
Talking about Tottenham.
He did mention that, so I need, because he brought my kids into the equation. Unfortunately, I'm a defender. I have to defend my kids, right? Yes, I'm their role model, so they tend to follow me, fortunately, wherever I go. So if I support Tottenham because Cameroonians were playing for Tottenham, not the likes of, I just follow big teams. My kids have a tendency to always go where their father goes. You know what I'm saying? So I cannot change that, right? But of course, would I want to pay good money to see good football in Cameroon? Yes, but I listed 3 things. I expect to have something in return.
Okay.
Right? It's as simple as that.
All right. Let's I just want to address something around the local leagues and how it can add value to the national league, and then see where there might be a missing link. Because my understanding, and based on what you guys have talked about and shared so far, is that the dynamics of every country is different, right? So what can succeed in Cameroon might not succeed in Egypt or in Nigeria or in Ghana, as far as having a developed local league is concerned. And the reason I say that is because let's look at Egypt, for instance, or North Africa, sorry, for instance, they have one of the best local leagues in the continent, right? Tunisia, Algeria, Egypt, Morocco, what's the other one? And then, of course, we're talking about South Africa. And then the countries that do not have developed local leagues are, of course, the CEMAC countries and then parts of West Africa. However, when I look at football at the world stage, I'm seeing more consistency as far as participation and progression is concerned from the West African and the CEMAC countries. And that when I say CEMAC, I'm talking about Cameroon, right? So when you look at Cameroon, Cameroon has the best World Cup stats. When you look at North Africa, the worst is likely, I think it's coming from North Africa. Egypt, for instance, they have the best in Africa. They have the best infrastructure, good local league and all. But they've only been to the World Cup how many times? And what's the furthest they've gone? They have the best infrastructure, they pay good money, and everything. So my question is, what is the missing link? Because that might be a solution to the problem as far as why the African teams are not progressing on the world stage. We have developed local leagues, like I've given examples for North African countries. But why are they not performing at the world stage? Egypt is an absolute disappointment. Absolute disappointment. Algeria, disappointment. Morocco, Tunisia, they're all disappointments. Never been to a quarterfinals. So what is the problem? Cameroon has the best record, but we get the most insults, right? And I'm not trying to be biased here. I'm trying to, let's wear our thinking cap, right? And I've given you the differences so you can see both, both pictures. So
I'll take that.
Where does the problem actually lie? And Tru3Lion, I'm going to throw this at you, being a big proponent of local leagues. Yeah.
If you see,
we don't want to limit Africa within Africa. We want to be competitive. We want to be able to go to Asia and outshine, and of course in Europe, right? And wherever, and of course the World Cup. Yes. So Tru3Lion, please.
Yeah. If you look at the, history has always had like the Northern African teams, Morocco, Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, they play European type of football because they are almost like close to Europe and all that. So that's why when they go into World Cups and all that, they are not, but keep in mind, Algeria also had a good World Cup in before Cameroon. They were unbeaten team and they were cheated. But their football is actually close to the European. So that's why when they go to the World Cups and all that, that's my opinion. I feel that they are not actually performing at that level. Meanwhile, the Sub-Saharan, I want to say, or other African teams like Cameroon, Nigeria, their style was different. They had power, they had technique, they had everything. But guess what? That is slowly going away. Do you know why? Because the kids that play now for the national teams for these countries plow their football in Europe. They are raised in Europe. So now they are playing like the Europeans. And that's the same problem that's also happening to the South American teams, to Brazil, Argentina. And that's why Europe is now dominating. That's why you need to go back to your roots. That's why you need to go. And when I say go back to your roots, it's not as if I'm putting the kids back home in Africa against those in Europe. It will just create you a bigger reservoir of talent. And you can go back to your African style of football. Watch Cameroon play now. What style are they playing? Watch Nigeria. What style are they playing? All those kids are playing football from Europe because that's where they are now brought up in. You don't see back in the days Oman Bik left Cameroon and integrated directly with Laval. You don't see that again nowadays.
Okay, but let's talk about consistency though.
Yeah, but that's why the consistency, because
those North African teams, they are not consistent.
Even the Sub-Saharan, are they consistent?
But when you look at performance over time, if you look at the trend, the pattern and everything, I think Cameroon, for instance, despite having all the limitations that we've talked about, has been a bit consistent.
Are you happy with the results of Cameroon? If you're happy, then we should not be having.
No. I'm not looking at one instance. I'm looking at over time.
Yeah, but
right?
just like
Performance over time. Because I would expect Egypt, I'm really disappointed at Egypt. I would have expected Egypt to at least been to a World Cup finals. There is absolutely no excuse for having, you understand? I'm sorry I'm being hard on Egypt, but they claim to
I'm
be
not
the
talking
king of
about.
Africa, but their claws are only in Africa.
Okay,
Go
take
to the
for
world
example.
flop.
Take for example Asia. Take Asia that just came into football. Compare them with Africa. World Cup for the past, when they came to Africa to football for the past 20 years, Asia has a better record. Why? Why is that? Because Asia has better, their football is better structured than African football. Simple.
Okay, so all that thought on structure will be back when Terence talks about managing.
I know you mentioned something which is very interesting. I think it's a very good, it's something that is very, very important to talk about. I was going to ask you the question, and this could easily be seen from the performance of Cameroon in the 1990 World Cup. The team that went to the 1990 World Cup, most of them were local stars. Were playing locally. So this is a very important question I'm going to ask. I had to pose you that question, but someone else asked that question. So then you had mentioned about the African style of football. Most of these guys were playing in Cameroon. So what is African style of football?
Yeah.
The African style of football is football. You know, first of all, they played in let's say dirt pitches. So they had technique, they had physique. You know, training in the sand also make you're physically down, you're very strong. So that was the African style of football. That was the African approach. And there's something I came up with there, right? The element of surprise. You know, the element of surprise, because you are coming with the technique that the Europeans are not used to. But now you see Toko Ekambi and all those guys, they train in Europe, they grew up in Europe. So they come in with a style that the European already master. That's also happening with the South Americans, you know, because most of the players now, you see Brazil, Germany gave them 7-1 at home. When did you ever see that happening?
So basically, what you are saying is,
you're saying that we need to develop our infrastructure, which means we have to have European standard pitches, world standard pitches. And then you go back and then you're saying African style was, we played in the sand. And that's where, hang on, and that's where the guys that played in 1990 came from. They were guys playing in the sand. So if we try to adopt the European style now, and you are one of the biggest critics of what happened in Olembe and what happened in one of the stadium that had the issue on the pitch, right? So what, in essence, what you're saying is that we don't have our own, we don't have anything. So we're copying from the West.
Can I respond? Right? How can you call good pitches European? So is that the European style?
No. You talked about sand, right? No, African style is sand. We're playing on the sand.
Physically, what made them strong physically? I'm not.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Let's just come clear on that. Okay.
How can you say that?
Perfect. I just want to be clear.
Can I jump in?
Yes, yeah.
I've been teaching out here for this go back. Man, look. Eno has to learn to be consistent, right? He's inconsistent like African football, right? He has to learn to be consistent because he wants to see consistency in African football, right? He cannot say the 90 guys played in the mud. I'm thinking that's what he means. In the mud, in the dirt pitches and all of that stuff. And then he wants us, like the moderator was saying, to then elevate, right? Because once we go into this fancy grass, this is not what the 90s guys grew up playing. We're going to play what is modern and more structured football. Back in the 90s, they said Iavele Masson. They had guys who were just there to destroy the game, right? They had brute players, they had brickies. We have bricklayers that were, you could not know how to break that system. The world has come from that. We have VAR. You cannot be coming with bricklayers in a football that has VAR, right? The kind of football that was played in the 90s is not even going to work this time. So it's not about, listen, can Africa accommodate their own ideology in the 21st century? Yes, they should, but we cannot piggyback from the 90s. The 90s has lived its time. The 90s has come and gone. We're in the 21st century, and we must accommodate with the demands and standards of the 21st century. We need those kids to play with good cleats. We need them to play on turf or grass. We need them to play with some leather soccer ball. So we need them to be organized like the kids in Europe. Unfortunately, that's just what it's going to be. And if they're organized like that, they're going to play like Europeans,
Okay.
right? So there's not and he wants to throw Asia. What is he talking about? Asia? He's talking about Korea and Japan. Those are the only two Asian countries that are dominant. I mean, if you throw Iran in there as an Asian country, Iran is also dominant, right? But in Asia, China has a super league. China has a very, very good league. Where is China? Right? Thailand has a good league. A lot of people plow their trade in Thailand. It's a good professional league. It's better than what we have in Cameroon. Can Thailand come and stand and have a conversation that we have a good league better than what you have? We can play football better than you.
Okay, so I think so far I think we have a big picture of what's happening, and we've understood both perspectives. And I think we need to move on to the next level, which is
so just before you,
which is the management of football, because from different perspectives, not just politicians getting involved. I think somebody threw a comment on the screen regarding that.
Yes,
so,
So just before you go there, I was going to ask them to comment on this. Like, apart from the politicians' non-involvement, there is something here. I think this is very, very important.
Okay.
So what this commentator thinks is that in the past, African players, historically, if you are playing in Africa, there is that aspect of resilience. You have to work extremely hard to succeed, and mental resilience. So she states, it seems as if when we are losing, and most African teams start losing, they lose their confidence, and then they don't do well. So for you guys, the two of you, and any of you can comment on this, can this be attributed to the fact that these guys are not playing locally? They are mentally weak.
Yes,
any
I
of
mean,
you can.
Yes, I mean, Dr. T, I'm just gonna name you 3 countries, right? Netherlands, they have lots of land problem, reclamation. Do you know what actually influenced their football? Tight spaces. That's why you see they have that culture of playing in tight spaces. Spain, Barcelona revolved the rondo, tiki-taka. That came from Ajax so that influenced their football. Italy is tactical. That's their football ever. Then you can also go Germany, defensive, but it changed after a while. So Africa has a culture. Everybody has a culture that they express through football. That's what Treize Quartoze doesn't know. So he is actually borrowing other cultures, and it comes with his society. And that's music, that's art. And that's what keeps fans, those local derbies and all that. You see, back in the 90s, when I was just alluding to the 90s, the element of surprise and all that, I was just talking about a moment. But as you know, in life, everything progresses, because when they catch up to how you're playing, you will try to find different ways, in order to win, in order to progress. So he comes here and be talking about boots and all that. Who's talking about that, bro? I mean, it's football. It progresses. It's not static.
Okay. So I think we have to move on. So this is something very important. You guys have discussed about the importance of local football. I think that's one thing that you guys agreed on. The perspective is a little bit different, and I think it's something that Treize started talking about. I brought him back to order just because I think it's something which is important, and we need to talk about it on a special subtopic. So Treize, I'm going to start with you, and then Tru3Lion, I will call Tru3Lion later. How can the local football be developed? You cited some issues. You may probably start with some of the issues and how this local football can be developed. If you want, you can cite the example of PW Bamenda.
I'll start with PW Bamenda because they've impressed me. When I was doing a lot of research for this debate, I was amazed at so much progress that club has done. They're one of the few clubs that actually have a website that you can detail. You could see progress in everything, transparency, and a lot of things that they do. And this is a club based in a ongoing war zone that is so structured, right? I was so impressed. You go to Canon and all those historical clubs, you cannot find any information. You understand? So it is maybe, and plus I would say I'm also looking only in English. I was not out here trying to type anything in French, right? So maybe they have it in French. I just was not seeing anything. But PWD impressed me, and you could see the amount of money. And that's a lot of money to go into football, and that's how football should be managed. My thing is, I want them to get that money back, which means I want to see fans go into the fields, 2,000 fans, 3,000 fans, pay their 500 francs, 1,000 francs gate fee, buy drinks, because when they buy drinks, they are promoting the local economy. I'm an economist in heart, but I think that everything is it's a revolving circle, right? Football, a successful league, and brings about employment and creates that culture that Eno is talking about. But also it empowers the entire community because everybody benefits, right? But it starts with the investment, the infrastructure. Fecafoot and the government needs to do its part. All of these large 20,000 seater stadiums are irrelevant in Cameroon when you cannot fill a 20,000 seater stadium, right? You need 2,000, 3,000, max 5,000 capacity for your local league, right? Because that's what you can feel. And when those guys play in a league that 2,000 people surround them and they're cheering, it feels like they're in a 60,000 seaters. I know it because I have played in that kind of situation, right? So you want that kind of environment that is close, tight, and it gives them the excitement that they're playing in a full capacity stadium. 2,000 people playing $1,000 francs, right? It starts to bring money into the coffers. They're buying drinks, they're buying puff-puff, they're buying granola, little confettis to eat. The game is exciting. They're putting money back into the young players that Eno talked about, and they're able to keep growing these boys and girls, because we also have to do this in the female league. We're not excluding women in this situation. Now, but the person investing their money needs to get their investment. And how does that work? Fecafoot now needs to have TV rights. There's nothing better than TV rights. FIFA makes its money from World Cup from TV rights. Egyptian League makes their money from TV rights, selling the TV rights, right? The European Champions League, bottom line, every football competition that we watch, the EPL makes a lot of money selling TV rights, which means that the professional league needs to be on TV and they need to sell it. And then they need to have educational programs to train these coaches and the management of football so that they understand what it takes to manage a professional. Matip did not want to play in Cameroon, not because he hated Cameroon, because he did not like the lack of professionalism that exists in Cameroonian football. And that is something that has to be taught. We cannot just go back to the 90s and be primitives and we'll just do whatever it is a structure that you learn. People have written programs. In Germany, it is taught to you. And we have to learn the process. Understand? So for that to happen, it starts from Fecafoot building smaller stadiums, right? The Ministry of Youth and Sports, the Ministry of Education, partnering to go back to the drawing board right from primary school, organizing those Osuks games, FENASCO games, high school games, and university games, right? And then from there, that excitement starts to come back, and we need to bring back that stuff. We used to call it interquartier, right? We need to bring back Top Cup. All of those things is what is in the grassroots program, right? And then once you've had that structure in place, and people, investors, Dangote Cement, the big companies in Cameroon, not MTN. There was one year that MTN sponsored every team in the Cameroon League. How's that possible? One company sponsors every team. How is there supposed to be some kind of competition in a league that one person is sponsoring? So all the big guys see potential that if I put in 200 million in Canon, if I put in 500 million in Mancon United, I can get my money back. I can see them grow from second division to first division, and we can start an academy to start catching those talents that we spotted at the Osuks games and integrating them in the academy. But I know that my money is not going to waste. I'm going to get my money back. So investment returns, the players get a living wage, a salary that they can have. Most of those guys have wives and children, and they go 6 months with no salary. How are you supposed to, what kind of football league can have that players go 6 months with no salary, and you have wife and kids and little girlfriends here and there that you need to take care of, right?
So, yeah, I will let you know. Because I think you went over your time. I will let you know.
But before he does that, before you do that, Terence, right, real quick, so we don't come back to 3S. You made a point about investing more in smaller stadiums than in the bigger stadiums. I think that's that contradicts your position of developing a local. And I don't know why you're laughing, but that contradicts that. No, I'm getting at something. That contradicts your position a little bit, because if we focus more on developing the smaller stadiums and doing the interquartiers and less of the 20 capacity stadiums or 50,000 capacity stadiums, because the local leagues are not able to fill them, then how do we get to meet, CAF and FIFA standards for other competitions within Africa that requires stadiums of those standards? You understand? So I'm looking at it as, you need to decide on what exactly you think should be the approach. Is it, should it be a two-faced, multifaceted approach, or, let's just forget about this one and focus on this?
So it's a dicey issue with Africa, right? Because in most clubs in the Western world or Asia or other places, the clubs own their own stadiums. Our clubs don't have the means to own their own stadium. Most clubs across the world, they are their owners of this, or maybe the local council owns the stadium, right? So it's manageable that way. So, but in Cameroon, the government and Fecafoot owns the stadium. So they can have one national stadium, right, where the national team plays, like how in England they have Wembley. They have the one national stadium, so probably Olembe, and then they have fields that are good for their regional tournaments, maybe 4. So you break it in the region so that Kumbu is not traveling to Yaoundé, or PWG is not traveling to Yaoundé to play a game. But if they can have a 20,000 capacity sitter in Bafoussam, they can go to Bafoussam and play. But their day-to-day league between each other, they should play in a stadium that is befitting of them. What is it that PWG is playing another let's say Union or Loom something in a 20,000? What is that? And they're 20. Yeah, there are 2,000 people sitting in a 20,000 seater.
Yeah, I think that's what Eto is working on now, because the last I saw, they were trying to do something in Chang, for instance, right? So hopefully we get to see more of that. Okay, Terence, go ahead.
So, Tru3Lion, now I'm going to pose the same question to you. How can locally grassroots football be improved? Treize has enumerated a series of very, very outstanding points. Those that he were not clear, he clarified them. I'm going to pose you the same question. Feel free to use an example.
Thank you for that, and I'm glad Treize Quartoze is coming back to my point. He's actually agreeing with me, because when I was criticizing, the way Cameroon went about AFCON, it's like putting the cart ahead of the horse. You're building these big stadiums, you're not collaborating well with Fecafoot in order, because it would have been done this way, right? You remember Iya? I think Iya, that was a former guy.
One of the former Fecafoot presidents.
He had a program with MTN. They started building little stadiums in Gida and Buda. You remember I posted that stadium also, were small stadiums and all that, and that articulated grassroots football, and that articulated, all around the nation, but that program was stopped, So to make football better, in situations or in a country like Cameroon, the government, as far as local government also, they have to collaborate. Everybody has to be looking into one direction. You cannot be building 60,000 seaters of stadium just to accommodate your taste for a Nations Cup. Because after that, what happens? We have a situation in all over, also in Brazil, in Gabon, that we've seen the stadiums being abandoned because of no maintenance. And we know the teams in Cameroon are poor. They cannot maintain those stadiums. Another thing that they have to do, good football laws, fake food, because we have this a call the foot. They are just selling kids. They don't care. They are just selling kids, and most of those kids are ending up in football slavery. I had some of the links after this. Anybody wants to do, just go type football slavery and see what's happening to African kids. So we need to implement better rules. And one of the things that I was happy why Eto was, elected as Speaker for this, somebody who loves or was actually being part of football and that loves football, that can now start and reconstruct football from that point of view. Le football au footballer. You see what I'm talking about? Because for the past, you have people in Africa that don't even love football, but because of the money, that's why they are there, And also tax cuts, because when I talk about the government working together, you have to do tax cuts. You have to give a business environment that's favorable for investors to come in, because we're talking about this the grass pitch and all that. Look at the way the Bell stadiums in Cameroon. Everything was imported. So how will the local businesses benefit from that? So you have to go nowhere, because we have farmers, we have good weather and all that. So you have to start talking to them now. We want you to be growing grass. They learn how to grow grass and all that. And that's how you get everybody involved. Then also you have to bring up a system where you impose higher levy on foreign football. People who are watching foreign football and all that, they pay higher taxes. That money, if they're watching for it, because that will also help promote, you use those taxes to help promote your league. Maybe on TV, in the EPL, people pay much money to watch it, but now they will be looking at to go watch local leagues. But also you have to improve your product. And what's the product? Talent. The talent has to improve. And this will take a while. Even when Eto was, I'm going to be honest, it's going to take a while, because we fell so far behind. But again, they need the fit far for market day. If we want to plan for victory in 10 years, we have to start today. We have to sacrifice. And that's why when Alexander Song, you see, Eto just made Alexander Song a coach. A lot of people are saying that he doesn't.
Not Alexander Song.
Rigobert Song, Bahana coach. A lot of people say he doesn't have the experience. Tell me, who is hiring African coaches? Every time we have they hire foreigners. No one is hiring African coaches. The leagues are not good enough for these guys to come and coach. I can name you about 20, 50 players, former players who are coaches, Clairefontaine graduates. So in order for us to put them into business, we have to give them a platform to showcase their talent. And that's why local league is very, very important. That's why grassroots football is very, very important.
And you made a very important
point. Can I say something about that, coach?
Let me just say something.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interject. You made a very important point, Tru3Lion, about Fecafoot having appointed a local coach, and also when we try to tie that back to the issue of local players versus foreign players, there is something that's lacking, right? Because we're crying, we're wailing that we want local players and we want a local coach, and then here comes the local coach, but then next thing we find out he's in Europe sourcing for foreign players. So like I keep saying, there is something that is missing, and we need to look for that thing. And it's actually one of the questions that one of your fans sent to me, that what do you think, or how do you think the local players would feel knowing that, okay, we just got a local coach, but here he is in Europe looking for foreign players?
Should I answer?
Emotionally, yeah. I don't know who wants to take that. Tru3Lion,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let me actually answer real quick.
Yeah.
Is when as I keep on saying, we have to sacrifice and plan for tomorrow to be able to harvest. We have to learn how to sow seeds to be able to harvest. Because these things, if you don't plan for it, we all are in the diaspora. If you don't plan for tomorrow, even back in Cameroon, you have to plan for it. So yes, Rigobert Song is not he doesn't have the experience needed. I know he's coached at the lower levels and all that. But it has to start somewhere, because if you don't fail, you don't have the opportunity to learn from that failure. And the only way we can satisfy our local kids, our local talent, is in order to build a platform, our own platform, that our kids can showcase their talent. It will take a while, but we have to sacrifice for tomorrow. Because football, as I say, is not only at the national team level, it's even better at club level, week in, week out, rivalries, week in, week out, rivalries. So that's what we need to do.
Yeah. Treize, you can respond quickly, and then I have something that you guys didn't touch with. I'll probably ask you guys because it's part of the solutions as well. So you just answer. I know
just to highlight on one of the solutions. Currently, the Cameroonian League really plays a lot of its game during the weekdays. It needs to be moved to the weekends where people have time and ability to watch it. Right, the weekdays is competing with work and other things. But coming back to the coach. Mrs. Moderator, we have already established that there's no quality at home right this moment, right? So it's crazy for the coach to be looking for quality in a farm where there is no quality. He has to go. And one of the most important mission for Song was to bring the likes of Matip. And I saw some breaking news today before jumping on a debate. I don't know how accurate that is. I'll still need to go do some research to find out how accurate that is, to know that he was able to convince Matip to join the fold. And again, that decision to appoint Song, I don't have a problem with it per se, but it's the timing of it, right? We have a crucial game in 3 weeks. Most teams do not do managerial changes when you have a crucial game that soon. Was Conceição the best coach or the most tactical gifted coach? No, but he had understood the system and he had a system that worked, right? And you're going against a phenomenal base as Algeria. You don't bring a rookie coach and then you're talking about somebody comes on the platform and say, let's take the time to rebuild. Is he conceding that Cameroon has lost this game and we're in the rebuilding phase, right? And that's my problem. Can we rebuild after the Nations Cup? We have time. I mean, after the World Cup, we have time. After qualifying Cameroon, they could have fired Conceição and appointed Song to take us to the World Cup. He would have had time. The World Cup is months and months away. He would have time. Song has to go convince these kids to come play because he doesn't have a pool of talents in Cameroon to pull from. So he has to go to Europe he has 3 weeks. Right? He has been out of the country for 3 days already, I think 2 days, convincing Matip to come play. He has to go now to France, convincing the other ones to come play.
He has a pool in Cameroon to do it. I don't think
the league has not played in 8 months. Cameroon has
no way.
No, Mrs. Moderator, the league has not played in 8 months. Those guys are not even fit.
Okay. Good point.
Yeah. Okay. Quickly, I saw you smiling, and I know you are going to come up with that. Not fit far for market day, so you go ahead and say it.
Exactly. That's what I've been saying. And this guy keeps doing the same thing. Let me ask you a question. Do you know Matip cannot play 2 back-to-back games? Like if there are 2 games in 2 weeks, he has to play one and jump the other. Or let's say if Liverpool. Do you know why Liverpool actually kept Matip? Because he had to quit the national team. The problem with us is that we keep thinking that you can go get a Messi and you bring him 2 days into your team and it changes the fortunes. No. Secondly, if you remember, I've not been one of the biggest fans of Samuel Eto'o, but I do acknowledge that when Samuel Eto'o talks about football, or when he makes a decision, it means something he's seen is something I am not actually seeing. So if Samuel Eto'o tells me that Rigobert Song can take you from point A to point B, guess what? I will wait on that day to see if that was true. I will fall behind him because they are the ones who hire the coaches and they are the ones who actually make those decisions. And for a game like this that is coming up, the greatest thing, because Paul Ogwen also did it against Gabon. It doesn't mean that even if Song goes ahead and wins, it doesn't mean that Song is actually a good coach, because we'll still need about 5-6 games to know if Song is a good coach. So it's more like motivation. And Song, as a captain, has been in those situations where he can actually just motivate players and they go play with a high adrenaline, So, but as I said, win or lose, I know that football is for the long run. So even if Song Banak loses, I'm still going to wait for the future to see.
Correct. I think it will be too soon to assess.
Thank you, guys. And this is a very important point that you guys mentioned briefly. You had mentioned it, so it's very important because there have been some issues. You guys have been talking about some of these kids, like Treize, for example. You started it by talking about your kid born here abroad and has to go back. It seems have been in recent times there seem to be some issues with integration of some of these foreign-born kids within national team because of maybe some cultural differences. So what are some of the measures? So this question is for you both that could be implemented to help integrate these new kids, because this is actually like Cameroon, for example, depends on this currently. Any of you can go. Treize, I'll start with you.
So what are some of the integration steps?
Yes, some measures that could be.
It's a good thing that we have somebody like Eto'o who has lived abroad, whose kids were born abroad, who understands the blending of both cultures, right? So it's a good thing that we have somebody like Eto'o at the helm, and that's how the integration part starts. We have a lot of former Cameroonian players like Elanga, whose father actually played for the national team, right? And who is not even considering Cameroon. We have to go literally beg him to come play for Cameroon, right? And that's where the next phase of Eto'o's job needs to focus. How do we then, because Cameroonians, the guys back home, they're very impatient, right? If a player says that I don't want to come to Cameroon because of professionalism, the Twitter, social media goes crazy. On ne te veut même pas, reste chez toi, tu n'es même pas Camerounais, and those kind of language. We have to be able to sensitize or find a way to be able to accommodate both of our differences. Because in my case, if I'm able to get my daughters to play soccer, for example, right, and they don't integrate the US team and they're playing at a very high level, and that's what every other parent that's in America, where we know girls football it's a huge sport, right? If we're able to get our daughters to play at just the college level, all of them are eligible to play in Cameroon. Imagine the talent pool that can go assist that Cameroonian team that is already good with kids that come from the US that play at the college level. So we need to understand our strength, that if we blend our both communities together, our differences, those in the diaspora and those back home, because those girls that play back home are already phenomenal. And then you add the ones who have adapted to the system, playing at the college level, which is a professional league in itself. And you bring these kids back. If we can welcome both of these girls, imagine Cameroon will be able to finally beat Nigeria, and Cameroon will be a mainstay at the World Cup, where they are struggling right now. Yes, and it's the same thing for the men's team. We have to be able to tell our kids, my kids, your kids, Anna's kids, Elizabeth's kids, and everybody watching this who are born abroad, that you have an option. You can play here or you can go back home. It's the responsibility of Fecafoot to integrate, and it should be a Cameroonian culture of welcoming, right? That we should be able to welcome our sons and daughters born outside, so that like Eno said earlier, our pool to pull from is bigger, not smaller, because we only want guys who are based at home. We should be excited to add value and not take away. We are not less Cameroonians because we don't live in Cameroon. And it starts with the Constitution. They have to go back and amend the Constitution to allow our kids integrate as Cameroonians, so that they're not seen as just coming in with a special constitutional allowance that says you're serving the country and that's the only time a dual national can play for Cameroon. We need all of those instruments in place to welcome our kids and develop the kids that are back home.
Okay, I'll
Tru3Lion, you go ahead, and then that's a very interesting question. We have some questions here from the audiences. Elizabeth also have a question, so we'll check. We may not be able to ask all the questions because I think this seems to be very, very exciting discussion, and I will recommend that maybe after the discussion, you guys could go to the comment section and answer some of the questions.
Yeah, I'll go really quick, and I'm happy Treize Quartoze is finally agreeing with me. Say they know the fit file for market day, because all those solutions he gave, like solutions where you plan in advance. So now you start understanding why I use a term like that, because integration is not only for the diaspora, integration is also for those back at home. Because when I look at the list of players that have been playing, or those taking all the money, I don't know how much Fika Food or the government gave to those players. I did not see any players that were actually back home. Also, there's this culture of giving the legends, respecting the legends or respecting football. It goes a long way. You cannot come and have a Nations Cup and you didn't, the Mbappé pays, or I know Mbappé pays, something was done in this, but the ancient footballer, even Joseph Antoine Bell, was not invited officially for the AFCON Nations Cup. I mean, how does that feel?
Yeah.
Kanabik has spoken on that. I've listened to Kanabik. He was asked about his kids because he has, I think, a young one also that is trying to play football. There's these Moroccans. There are there's this Moroccan, two Moroccans that actually play for Morocco, and their younger one is also into football. The dad was also interviewed, and he said the younger one maybe will play for Cameroon. Let's not go far. The Mbappés. What did we do to make Cameroon look attractive for these kids? Again,
so what can we do? That's the question.
But that's what I'm telling you. The culture. We have to change the culture. We have to start recognizing these players, the right way. Not only those that actually, because the other day I saw Samuel Eto'o Inter Milan Hall of Fame. It was also done in Mallorca. What has Cameroon done for Roger Milla or Samuel Eto'o? I'm not talking about, but I'm talking about the right way. So the culture has to change. The culture has to change.
Okay, Elizabeth has a question for you guys, and then we'll stream through the questions that people have posted, and then see if we could ask one or two, because we thought we would do this for 1 hour, but we are almost taking 2 hours because of the excitement, and the people are still there. So thank you everyone who is watching. We are very pleased to have you. These guys are very exciting. So Elizabeth.
Yes, so we've talked about all those issues, but one thing we haven't touched on is the balance of power. Fecafoot having the absolute authority to manage its affairs. And that's one of my biggest issues. If I were to get on social media to say anything, that is what I will be pounding on. I think for us to even see any kind of change at any level, we need Fecafoot to have absolute control of its affairs. We don't want to see communiques from the minister saying this and this about the coach. And somebody just posted something about the coach was appointed by the minister, not Fecafoot. Others are saying that Etofis appointed his friend Song Bahanak, his countryman Basa Boy, for can be coach for national team, and all those things. We want to see a clear, a clear picture of who is responsible for making decisions for the Cameroon national team. That way we can hold people accountable when things go wrong, right? So I have a problem with the government meddling in the affairs of football. And I think even FIFA has rules around that. The government needs to take its hands off. I don't know if you guys share the same perspective and you guys want to, speak more about that. Whoever wants to touch on that, Tru3Lion, that. So, because to me, I think that's one of the biggest barriers. If the president has to be going back and forth and have this war of words with the minister, and we're seeing it on social media, it doesn't translate well. Right?
Let me actually say this. To be candid, the level at which our football is, right, you have to both have to actually look in the same direction, because you cannot take the government out of it, because in order to build because we don't have a strong foundation, and in order to build all this, but the problem is that they just have to look into one direction. I'm happy that you have now someone or people around who care about football.
No, why can't the government take, because they are in other leagues in other countries, the government doesn't interfere. So
But
why can't the government take its hands off?
let me
Because
tell
there's such
let me give you an
interest.
example, right? Let me
Yeah,
give you an example. Like I grew up in let's say I lived in Dallas, Texas, right?
yeah.
And when it was time for the Cowboys to build a new stadium, everyone, the community was involved. The taxes, they raised taxes and all that. So that's where I say the government, it cannot be
Okay.
a standalone project, But when I say the government has to work together with Fika Food, is that they all have to look into one direction and let Fika Food actually take leadership from that point of view, because that's
Okay.
how you build and maybe make things
Okay.
better.
Yeah.
But it has to come from a place like, and also we have to also know that as good as Samuel Eto'o is, he's never managed any football before. He's never managed anything before. So he will make mistakes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have to be patient and we have to construct for the long run. That's what I've been talking about, but Cameroonians in their mind, they're just like,
No, Tru3Lion, I need you to touch on reforms at the level of
Can I get on it?
there's not much, but there's not much. I just told
like
you
the issue of appointing a coach. Why does Fika Food and
Can I answer that real quick?
have to go at loggerheads? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Trace, you can answer, and Trace, you could go ahead, and I probably have something to comment on that as well.
So for now, you're absolutely right that there should be separation, and there should be separation, right? Separation does not mean division, right? So when Eno talks about the Cowboy, there's separation. The state understands the importance of the Cowboy Stadium to the state. So they're willing to give subventions because they know that they're going to get something back. They're not in competition and they're not in direct partnership with the Cowboys organization, but they understand that I need to create this environment so the Cowboys flourish. So in return, benefits me. I talked about return on investment for any investor. So at that point, the state is an investor, and the state of Cameroon needs to be an investor in that. When Fika Food grows, when football in Cameroon matures, Cameroonians are going to spend money. Cameroonians are going to enjoy, and in return, the state is going to get money into its coffers. So it starts by that separation. The government needs to get its hands off of Fika Food. They run as an independent institutions. But right now, Fika Food cannot run as an independent institution because anytime they need money, they run to the states and go get money from the government. And if I pay your bills, I own you. Yeah. It's as simple as that, right? So because the state pays the bills of Fika Food, which should not be the case, Fika Food should generate its own money. I'll tell you something interesting. Do you know that in 2021, Fika Food has created a commission to study the possibility of opening a merchandise store for the Lions? Like just sit and think about that kind of organization being independent. They need to create a commission to study the possibility of having a merchandise. So if I want to buy any of those Indomitable Lions equipment merchandise, they don't have an official store. And it's something that they are actually studying. Like, what are they studying? It's a foregone conclusion that you need to have a store. The location of the store, that's something, but what is it? How much money has been put into that commission?
That's a fair point, and I can probably say that when I was looking for Lions equipment to get the jerseys, and the only place you could get the official one was from Lecoq in Paris. They don't ship to outside the European Union.
Exactly.
So they only ship to the EU. So that
tells you how dependent and immature Fika Food is, and they cannot exist under the current status as an adult, right? So like Enna says, it takes time. But one of the down and disadvantage of Cameroonians is we are not patient. Right? We're not patient people. We want it now, and we want it ready and available for us to consume. And if it's not ready, then we have a problem. So we are not a patient people. How do we, the question is, how do we get over that hurdle of being patient to understand that? And that's why I am amazed at PWG. They sell their merchandise. How many other club sells their merchandise?
They do.
I think it's something that people need to learn and use PWG.
Dude, you're talking about the best club. I mean, PWG is not going to rival. When we're talking of, just keep Coton Sport out of the equation. It's just a club that's mistaken to find itself in Cameroon, right? The way Coton Sport is managed is just It's just a different organization.
But-
let's keep the other clubs within the Cameroonian context.
Okay,
and
yeah,
when
Tru3Lion,
PWD stands out, give their credit as they've stood out, right? And Pekaput should copy. Pekaput should call the president of PWD up and learn a thing or two from him.
Yeah, Tru3Lion, before
I don't even know who he is, but I know he's doing a good job.
Yeah, Tru3Lion, before you comment, it's also very important. I think that's a point that Treize made. I think the major funder of Fecafoot, unfortunately, is the government. So those two are inseparable, and it's so complicated. Like we see, the way a coach is hired in Cameroon is so complex. Fecafoot will find a coach, and then the hiring body is the Cameroon government appointing.
Thank you.
So it's so complex, and I think like you guys had mentioned something. I think everyone in Cameroon should be interested in the same project, and if you are giving money to the Ministry of Education, you should let the Ministry of Education manage its money and ask for your accounts. You shouldn't be interfering.
Yeah, and also, Terence, we need to get to a point where when something goes wrong, we know who to hold accountable. Not get involved in all this finger pointing and sidewalk blame gaming and all of that.
And then Tru3Lion, you comment, and then I have one final question for you both.
But Dr. T, remember I talked about laws, right? I talked about laws when I was talking how to make football better, right? And the problem is that there's a saying that goes in pidgin. They say mosquito will land for man picking a private part. Now softly they use and kill them. You cannot come and change, 30 years of bad governance in one day. You see what I'm saying? We failed to acknowledge Iya Mohammed. He did a good job with Fecafoot. One of the best, Fecafoot presidents that I've known. There was no continuation of the job that he was doing, So that's why Fecafoot actually went back into, and it's always been between TAS or CAS, the Court of Arbitration, back and forth. So now what you need to do is that, okay, let's forget about the past. But now that Samuel Eto'o is there and willing to change things, because now we saw that Alexander Song, the minister
Rigobert Song.
I'm sorry. I'm so fond of Alexander Song because that's my boy. Rigobert Song.
Was he played for us now?
Was chosen ahead of Conceição after the ministry came and all that. Those things still brings back fear when people see that. They say, "Oh, it's the old same, the old way." But let's just move forward nowadays. Let's learn and let's have confidence in someone. If you believe that Eto'o is the man, let's have confidence and let's see. But it's gonna take a long time, and the patience must be there.
Yes, and while we are patient, they should listen to our suggestions, our complaints, right, and use those to develop solutions.
Should I tell you something?
Yeah. Just before you say something, Scott Nyambi, I know you are watching. Scott, I know you are watching. Send these recommendations to your very good friend. I'm not going to call his name, but you know who I'm talking to. He should listen.
Should I say something? If I was the president of Fecafoot, you voted me, right? Although I will listen, but I have a game plan. And
no, of course,
that's what, because sometimes you see Cameroonians saying, "Oh, that's not a good. They are hiring." When is it a good time to fire a coach?
Okay, Tru3Lion. Okay, let's move. Okay, let's move on. I think we are running out of time. So this is the last question, and it's a very, very important question because today is the 5th of March, and in 17 days' time, Cameroon will be playing their World Cup qualifiers against Algeria. So Song Bahana has been appointed the new coach, and there are a lot of bloggers, vloggers, all the guys out there commenting. So you as a football fan, you both, I'm going to throw these questions to you. What are your expectations for Song Bahana as a national team coach? Treize, I will start with you because I know how I was just talking.
I want Cameroon to qualify, of course. I was already banking after looking at their performance and understanding that Algeria is in a decline. They have an aging team. They're in that phase where they're in a decline, right? But they still have a very, very good team. but that's a team that needs to rejuvenate. So I expect Cameroon, with its younger team and its momentum from the African Nations Cup, to give them a run for their money and actually win. But I got shell-shocked when the sudden change happened, right? Because so Song comes in right now. He's Lumayang. He's the motivator. He can galvanize the troops. I hope he can do that, right? I hope when he's done with his European trip tour, getting those kids from Europe to come play, to come add value and competition, he can eventually get them overboard over Algeria, because that would be let me not say it would be a task for him, but I really want it to be a chip that it's over his shoulder, because he has been a coach, but a very unsuccessful coach. It's not like he just came from nowhere, right? He has been largely a very unsuccessful coach. His record is on there for everybody to see. He managed the local Cameroonian Lions, and they came out last in their group. So his record is there, right? So, but we need him, like Eno said. I'm here agreeing with Eno, something that usually does not happen. But hey, okay, let me not. But I'm here agreeing with the man that he should play his motivator factor, right? He should motivate the troops. And that's it. We're not going to be expected to see any style of play. I'm not going to want to see deployment on the flanks and this. We just want to see greed. The boys should come in and play their heart and beat Algeria. And that's the only mission Song has for this qualifiers. Home and away. That's it.
Tru3Lion.
Yeah, I think in a game like this, a capital game where it's not that difficult to motivate players because the players want to go to World Cup, right? I think it might be the best moment for Song to be hired, because we should not forget that, as Treize Quartoze just said, his record is not actually good. So you have to look at that. So that keeps me to ask the question, why did Samuel Eto'o hire him? It makes me understand that, well, there were maybe some agreements they actually had maybe before Samuel Eto'o was actually elected as a president of FICAFOOT. However, when I look at Algeria is coming also from a vulnerable position, right? When I look at that game during the Nations Cup, and then they have 3 weeks, nobody is actually on the ground. They are not practicing right now because everyone is in their club. But it might favor Algeria a little bit because Mahrez is out with Manchester City still playing, right? All the Algerian home-based players, or some in Spain that I see, they are actually playing football. However, if you look at some of the Cameroonian players, the five, most of those players that went back, Koundé, they are not playing, so they might be losing form, so they might not be in their best shape when that encounter comes. So it's going to be a dicey one, it's one where I believe, the best team on that day, or it's how you start maybe the first game because it's home and away, right? So the best team during that time. So, as much as a lot of people say the timing was wrong to fire, I think Song Banak has a chance against Algeria.
Okay. Let me just add 5 seconds to what Eno just said, that the players are not playing. That is true. Hongla is not playing. But the guy keeping Hongla on the bench is also a Cameroonian, right? He's a Franco-Cameroonese. So that is also somebody it's a Cameroonian that's keeping Hongla on the bench right now, and he's not playing. He's actually better than Hongla anyway. So if they consider bringing him into the national team, it will not be a lost affair. And he mentioned Koundé. Koundé was not a starter in his club before coming to the national team, and he is not a starter in the national team. So there are some young players, Junior Onana, who plays for Bordeaux. These are guys that are playing consistently right now. They did not play in the Nations Cup, but they have the minutes under their feet that they can come and get tested, get a few minutes. But like I said, the guy putting Hongla, who played almost every game at the African Nations Cup, is a Cameroonian, and so it's not all lost.
He's better anyway.
He's better. He's much better.
One last question. So what I understand is that Treize Quartoze is telling me that a new coach that doesn't know the team that well should bring new players that don't know the team that well to play with players that they have not played with for a long time. So
if they're not playing on their own feet, what is he going to do?
We can have that conversation on another day. I'll let Elizabeth make her point before we close the show.
Yeah, just and this is just in regarding in regards to coach as the as the national coach, and with respect to what True Lion said earlier about the decision that Eto made to hire Song. We don't know what motivated him to choose Song Bahanak, because there are people that that are saying, "Oh, good choice. He was a great captain," and there are others that are saying, he doesn't have a good record as a coach. And then there are those that are saying they're looking at his character traits, right? And trying to, determine the fact that based on who he is and what we know of him, there are certain things that happened while he was captain that we might see happen while he is coach. For instance, you talked about maybe during a toast campaign, they had an agreement that, if you campaign for me, I'll make you national coach. That is problematic. If any of that transpired during the course of Eto's quest for Foot president and they got into that kind of agreement, then let's brace to see the vicious cycle, right, of favors and tribalism and favoritism and all that has been plaguing the football team continue. And if that happens to be the case, then the Song era is good, is ready for catastrophe.
Can I say something?
Yeah, that's just
As a person who follows football and I love football, I like to analyze from all points of view. And there's a video out there where you see these guys talking about Conceição and all that. And when you look at the entourage, when you look at Kalan Congo and all those guys, the entourage, tell me in that entourage, which of those guys are not from the Eto's entourage? All of them are from the Eto entourage. So that makes you think that makes you understand that there was an agreement before, But again, you cannot judge a coach unless you see him play for the current job that he's been hired.
Yeah.
So I will give some that
So
opportunity.
let's give him a chance. Okay, I'm done.
And let me just add something. Success also comes when you circle yourself with people that can protect you, right? So when a new CEO comes into a company, he brings quality people, but people that are within a framework that are not seen as outsiders or enemies, right? So it makes sense that Eto'o would surround himself, being like Eno said, he has never managed anything before except being captain for the Lions. So it makes sense that he surrounds himself. One of the things that Eto'o did that I didn't like was maintaining Semenge, who does not have a success record as professional league president. He maintained him, and this dude is about 98 years old, right? This is like a clear.
I think yeah, Treize, you make a fair point. Unfortunately,
Yes.
I think that's something that you guys would have touched earlier, and because we are running to the end of the show, we are actually encroached by 52 minutes into the time. So I will give you guys the opportunity for your last word. So Treize, I will start with you because I will start with you. Your last word. We have come to the end of the show, and you guys, people watched everything that you guys mentioned. The fans, you need to start going to the field. We need smaller stadiums. We need to help integrate the foreign-born nationals, and also, the infrastructure is very, very important, and then the management itself. So, Treize,
We
the
need
last
the
word.
government to take its hands off Foot.
Yeah.
Only
that is very important.
It's only befitting that I go last since Eno started, right?
Okay, that's fair. That's okay, even though you didn't have to ask for it, but since you asked for it, I know Eno will still be okay with that decision.
Well, yes, of course, I'm okay with that decision because it doesn't matter first or last. I'll still deliver what I need to deliver. However, football is a result-driven business, right? And also, there's no football without fans. And if we're talking about Cameroonian football, we should be talking about local fans because in those days, the Tunes, the Canon, Oryx, some of you didn't even know that Oryx Douala actually won the first African Club Cup tournament. I mean, that's how good Cameroon football was.
I know that, and I know who scored in the finals in the last minute.
Exactly. So we need to, because football is about solving problems. Football is about community. Football is about entertainment, and we need to watch our kids. I mean, the neighbors' kids actually play that is actually our own. And our own doesn't need to be the best. It just needs to be something respectful, something consistent, and something that can actually drive culture from grassroots actually right up to the national team. Go check out Ghana coach of 2018, what he talked about grassroots football. When they asked him, like, was it disappointing that Africa did not make it past the first round? He said, Africa needs to go back to grassroots football. Africa needs to go back to grassroots football. That is my message today. We need to go back to grassroots football, and that will trigger to the league and then to the national team. It's all about culture. It's all about making mistakes, and it's all about correcting them. It's all about going up.
Tru3Lion. Yeah, and so Trey, since you wanted to close the show by banging on Eno, I'm sure you want to damage him now, so you go ahead.
After much consideration, I decided not to damage the poor man. But this is what I'm going to say. The glass has to be full. I don't see the glass half empty. I'm not a half-bred kind of. You understand? There's a possibility for us to do it right. We should do it right. We should not do it half the distance to the goal. We should not. If we're going to do half the distance to the goal, we should not do it at all. Right. So if Cameroon is going to bank on, Cameroon is a country with potentials and resources. We're not a struggling country. We're not a country that we are just out here. So if we're going to go the professional route, we should go the professional route and put all the institutions, all the laws. Do you know that in Cameroon, there is nothing, contracts are not even being signed? And we have lawyers that graduate every day from the University of Boyada cannot get into entertainment law to ensure that these players are getting their contracts signed. That is what professionalism is. If we're going to have a professional league, we should go all the way. We should not go half, on va faire comment, c'est le Cameroun. No. And that's why I say I will not say, because they have a tendency of always going half the distance to the goal. Right? So I support grassroots football in all its entirety at the pee-wee level as kids growing up, because that's how we enjoyed it. But at that professional level, I don't see Cameroon making it, which means when the kid has attained that 14, 15, 16 years, that's the dangerous time, which means they have to be looking for opportunities outside, because those opportunities do not exist at home. Football is money. If you don't have the money, do not embark on football. There's entertainment football that we play, Santé and all that stuff. Yes, you can shake your head all you want. Football is money. It's a business. It's not charity. Football is not charity. It's a business. And there's not a business investor that goes into a business and not want to get their money back. And we talked about this amount, the 151 million budget that PWD put up that I saw. I asked you, and you were saying we're going to talk about this or touch this. Are they going to get the money next year to reinvest in 2023? Or are they going to come and press my neck here in America that I should give more $100 so that they should make another $100 for 2024? Then in 2025, they're going to fail.
Yeah,
because
thank
we
you,
keep,
Chris,
we keep doing the same
those,
thing. So
comments.
let's build, if we're going to go the route that Eno wants, grassroots to professional, let's build a structure. Let's have, it benefits every Cameroonian at every level if football is successful in Cameroon. But if we go half-ass, then it's not going to benefit all of us, because I'm not going to watch it. The kids are not going to come. They're going to come back my kids to play, and I'm going to say no, because I have to bribe Song, I have to bribe Kala. And like somebody is saying in the comment section, the entire management team is a bunch of rookies, right? So let's expect professionalism. Let's expect a structure and put in place laws that protects everybody. And from start to bottom, we're going to see Cameroon football be like South African football, like Moroccan football. And why not? Why is Cameroon thinking that we cannot be as professional as those guys? Why? So if we can be like those guys, let's be like them.
Great points, guys. Yeah, great. Yeah, Terence, you can go ahead and close on. I think we've had a very educative session today, and a lot of takeaways that I think that if people that are listening are actually visionaries and they are open to people making suggestions and, receiving these inputs to help shape things, I think we might start seeing some changes.
They can call me and Eno will help them.
Figure foot
Yeah,
and
thank you
the
guys for
communication.
coming, and thank you to all our viewers here. I have seen the numbers remain keep on increasing in the last 2 hours. So I think it was this has been the most anticipated discussion or debate in the past 2 weeks since we advertised the topic. And I think from the interest, we do understand the importance and the interest that Cameroonians have in football, and generally the Africans have in their football. And so the two gentlemen have proposed some interesting solutions to the development of African football, especially at the grassroots level. First things, it shouldn't be harmful, which I totally agree. And I think the most interesting thing, and one of the things that makes me happy, is that at some point they agreed with each other. We need to develop African football. So, ladies and gentlemen, everyone who watched out there, thank you very, very much for watching. If you have any question, post, and Tru3Lion and Treize, I do ask you guys to go through the comments. There are a lot of questions for you guys, and feel free to respond to them. If you have any other questions, please send them to us, and we will be able to send them to these two guys. Thank you very, very much for watching, and have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you for having me.